Hey everyone, remember us? Yep, that's right, it's the AllMonster.com Monster Truck Podcast. Quick intro on this one. This is an interview I did with my good buddy Mark Schroeder of the Devastator and Felon Monster Trucks. Back in the day, Mark and I ran up and down the roads for a long time, and I am grateful to call him a great friend in the monster truck industry. Without Mark, there would not be AllMonster as it is today. He means a lot to me, he means a lot to Dustin, and I was able to sit down with him earlier this year in Oakland. Unfortunately, the recording software interrupted the last part of our interview, but you will see an outro to this that will kind of let you guys know what we're up to with the AllMonster.com Monster Truck Podcast coming in the future. But for right now, enjoy this interview from Oakland. Get caught up, hit us up in the comments section, and don't forget to follow AllMonster.com on all social media platforms that you see on this very screen, as well as supplying your thoughts on iTunes and following us at any social media and podcast outlet. Enjoy the interview, guys. Welcome to another episode of the Monster Truck Podcast. I am joined today for the very first in-person Monster Truck Podcast by Mark Schroeder, Devastator, Felon, longtime driver, longtime independent driver. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Robby. I guess we're in Oakland, California, in line to do our second show of the weekend, stadium show, which is not common for us to do stadium shows back to back, but we had a good night last night, and I'm looking forward to today, and I'm looking forward to the rest of my year. I've had a rather trying year the past 5 months, had some medical issues, and I'm happy to be past that now, and I'm feeling very good, almost good enough to drive, to get back in the seat, but in the meantime, I've got what I think is one of the best drivers out there I could possibly have. Lucky to have Aaron Basil from Pablo Huffaker fame, David Smith fame, and now I can say that he's worked with me, and I'm proud to have him. I'm happy to have him.
Yeah, he does a great job, and we've always really enjoyed seeing what he's got. So I want to make sure that was working there. Okay. Yeah, it's been interesting. A lot of people have asked me about it too. Like, why is Aaron driving? Well, for one, he's pretty good.
Yeah.
Did you have any sort of? I wanted to know about the process that happened there, because when you were having medical issues, without getting into too many details,
sure.
Obviously, you had still booked a schedule for first quarter.
Absolutely.
Did you approach Aaron? Did Aaron approach you? How did that whole thing work?
I approached
Steve Kohler
Aaron.
drove in Glendale,
Yep.
and then it was you.
Yep, I approached Aaron originally. The first person I called was my very dear friend Jim Kohler, saying, "What do I do? I need your help, and you're the only person I can think of off the top of my pillow in my bed in the hospital." In a panic of what am I going to do, didn't know how long I was going to be in the hospital, which turned out to be 12 days, and Jimmy couldn't do it. He would have flown out to drive my truck for me because I was committed to do a show in Glendale, Arizona, and Jimmy couldn't do it, and he said, Steve is available, and in the meantime, I had called Aaron Basil, and Aaron was busy that weekend with some family issues to go to. I think he had a wedding or something fun to do. And so Aaron couldn't do it, and I said, well, I need to talk to you later on. Call me next week. In the meantime, we put a plan together for Steve Kohler to come out to Arizona and complete my obligation, do the Monster Jam show in Glendale, and Steve did a fantastic job for me, and it was probably it was the first time I've watched someone drive my truck in a long time. A very good friend of mine, Bruce Hubbard, back in Milwaukee, is the only other person that's ever driven my truck. So, and he wasn't available.
Right.
And Steve still has some seat time. He still has the knowledge and the wherewithal to do it, and he did a great job. And then after things settled down and I was out of the hospital and thinking with a clearer head, Aaron and I got together on the phone, and I said, I think I'm going to need some help. I know I'm going to need some help. And the transition he was making from Houston, moving to Nebraska, to where his fiancée Amy lives, planning for their wedding coming up this fall in August, and he didn't have a lot going on. He was doing odds and ends and jobs, and he said, I would be happy to come and help you out. So those were probably the best words I have ever heard, besides my wife saying I do.
There you go.
So, I've known Aaron for a long time, and I've known him since he was a young kid, and having him be able to work for me and drive my truck and run this operation, there's nobody better in my opinion.
Yeah, you've had a few different people do that. That's weird to me that you'd say that's the first time in a long time somebody's driven. You've watched somebody drive.
Yeah.
What was going through your mind when you first were, Steve goes onto the track in freestyle? What was running through your head? Was it, oh God, I hope he doesn't break everything? On the other hand, Steve's been around a long time, just like Aaron, and those guys might have reputations when they're driving their own stuff that's different from when they drive somebody else's.
Right. And Steve and I had I'm not going to say a long talk about that, but we had multiple conversations that he was nervous, I was going to be nervous, and he wanted to reassure me that he wasn't going to drive Team Scream style. He was going to drive, not conservative, but drive good show and give our fans what they, pay their hard money for to come and see these shows, and he was going to give them a good show. I wasn't feeling good, had been just released from the hospital 2 days prior to that. I had a friend of mine drive me to Glendale to follow Steve in the rig, to be there as kind of moron support, I guess, if you will. Not so much moral support, but and another good friend of mine from Milwaukee flew in to come and help as well, to crew for Steve. And Steve just said, I don't want you to worry about this. He says, I'm more nervous than you. I don't want to break anything. He said, I don't want you to be mad at me if I break something. I said, these are monster trucks. They're going to break. I know you're going to take care of my stuff. I want you to go out there and do what you do, have fun with it, and let's just not worry about it. So I was there for Friday night for practice, so I got to see him make a qualifying or practice pass, if you will, and I was going to stay for the show on Saturday and did not stay. I was not feeling good, so I head back home to Lake Havasu, and so I didn't get to see him watch. I didn't see him in freestyle. I didn't see him. I saw him a day or two later. I watched it on YouTube. After he came back to the house, he found it on YouTube, and we watched it together. And he was very critical of himself, which I think is unfair. We're all critical. We're all our worst critics, of course. But he was critical of himself, and he drove it in the trailer, and he did a great job. The fans were happy, and that's all that matters. As long as we can keep the people that keep us doing what we do, if we can keep them happy, that's a win. It's great to take a trophy home, and it's great to take first place, and it's great to do all that, but the most important thing is to keep our fans happy and to keep them coming back year after year or month after month to see these shows, whether they be big, small, county stadium, or a car dealership. Right. And so I wasn't nervous watching Steve. On the other hand, I'm not going to lie, and I told Aaron after the fact, I didn't tell him before, but after our first show in San Diego 3 weeks ago, I was nervous. Absolutely. I'm nervous personally when I'm sitting in that seat of that truck before I go out, and I've said for almost 24 years that when my nerves go away, so will I. Right. Because it's time to hang up your driving shoes if you're not nervous about it, and you're nervous about the anticipation with everything, whether it be the truck, if the truck's going to break, how it's going to handle, how you're going to drive, am I going to crash, am I going to do a good job? All those things go through your mind, and after it was weird. It was like an out-of-body experience watching Aaron, because he has a similar driving style to me, which I really was not aware of. I didn't really pay that much attention to it until he started driving my truck, and watching him drive the truck, I felt like I was almost in the truck, and after he made his first hit, my nerves went away, just like they do when I'm driving the truck. I make my first hit, and my nerves go away. Yeah,
it was really weird to me. There's no other word for it, to be honest. I watched Aaron freestyle last night, and I'm like, I had to remind myself that it was Aaron and not you. And that's a good thing, I guess, because
I'm gonna take that as a compliment. I'm going to take that as a compliment.
And Aaron had similar equipment for a while, too. And I didn't think about that until he hit the track.
Yeah, that's why it's such a beautiful mix here, Robby, is my chassis, now old, it's 14 years old. It's the second of that style of chassis that Pablo built. And so Aaron's had a lot of experience with this type of chassis now in the past several years. He's been driving a low motor chassis, so he had to get used to having a tall motor in the chassis again, and it was like riding a bike, man. He just got back in it and did it. Yeah. And he asked me if I was nervous after the show, and I told him I was, and I said, "Were you?" And he goes, "Yeah, I was nervous." And we compared mental notes. We're learning a lot about each other. You know, we were just really friends out on the road before, and now we're basically living together. And we're learning a lot about each other. We have a lot of similarities. He has a lot of the same mentalities that I have about how things should be done and how we take care of our equipment and respect. And I think it's a great thing.
Yeah,
I'd like to keep him on forever.
That's the key word. Hey, Aaron, if you're listening, you heard it here.
Right.
But that was one of the things that kind of drew me to you, so many years ago, was it's easy, I won't say it's easy to tear up equipment, but it's harder to keep equipment together and put on a good show, in my opinion, than it is to go out there and just blast something stupid and hope it lands okay.
Yeah.
And you've always said, this is my job, there's nothing wrong with having fun at my job, but I also have to put food on the table with this job. So
Correct.
You're literally taking food off your table if you go out there and pogo the truck and flip it and 360 it and land back on all fours. That's great for the win, but it's not so great for the budget. So
no.
That's always been your mentality. I found it really interesting that, like, I was talking to Sean Duhan on this before, and I said, Sean, it would be the hardest job to get the 24 in freestyle that leads to the 27, that leads to the 30, because you got to keep it all together and not go so crazy that the 30 isn't spectacular.
Right.
There's a place for that, and it seems like there's less and less people that they want to do that.
Yeah.
So you're the 24, and kind of, I guess, just speak to your mindset on that. And was it always that way from the start, because of budget or because of mindset, or both?
Yes and yes. It was, being that, how do I say this? Being that I'm my only sponsor. Mm-hmm. I've had some nice product sponsors along the way, and I don't want to minimize the importance of them, because product equals money equals dollars in your pocket. So if I don't have to buy oil, I don't have to spend money out of my budget. But I've basically been self-funded, and the monster truck is funding itself, with the booking fees and what you get paid to work at a monster truck or a monster jam show. That's what's always funded my operation. Now, early on, of course, with my other jobs, I had to, I tried to separate my jobs and the monster truck business, and of course, your income from your other job has to fund that until you get out there and start making money with the monster truck. And then when you go out and make money with the monster truck, the budget is tight. And going up and down the road, when I started, diesel fuel was $1 a gallon. Now it's $3.50 a gallon, and the booking fees have changed with that. They're not the same. What's changed and hasn't equaled out is the expectations of the destruction with the cool stuff. To go out there and pogo it, to roll it over, save it, continue on. Well, if you roll it over and save it, that's way cool, and fans love that, and you're the hero of the day. But now you've just taken out a $10,000 body. Yeah, you can scab it together, which is what you do, and refiberglass it, and revinyl it, and move on. Unfortunately, my budget doesn't allow to go out and tear a body off every weekend. I'm respectful of my equipment. If I was a wealthy man and had an endless supply of money, I could still not do that. I could not go out there and tear up a piece of equipment that I built through hard work and labor. And again, Pablo Huffaker built the chassis. I did everything else, and there's a lot of investment of sweat equity. Mm-hmm. That I respect that, and I treat it as if it were a fine show car or daily driver or anything else that you have of value in your life. Everything I have that might be a materialistic possession in my life, I treat with respect. And so that's how it boils down to in the monster truck industry is, the two things, budget and respect. It's great to go out there and just rip it up and have a good time. And Aaron and I just last night here sitting in the hauler We're talking about if we had an unlimited budget, or we were told we could go out and do whatever we wanted, and it doesn't matter. Number one, someone will pay for it. Number two, someone's going to fix it. We don't have to do anything to it. We both agreed that we don't think that we could just go out there and just willy-nilly go out there and tear stuff up at will, because you have the green light to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to give a good show, and you said earlier here that it takes more to save a truck and give a good show than it does to go out there and just roll it over and crash. And I know that that's a big topic of conversation amongst all of us drivers, depending on who you're talking to. And it's a fine line, and our fans have come to expect big things. Yeah. And that's why we are at where we are today in the monster truck industry. Monster Jam has made monster trucks what they are today. Yeah. And there's no question about that. And I am grateful for that. I'm not going to lie. When I started this project 27 years ago, it took me 3 years to build my first truck because I didn't have the money. I would go to work, make money, and what money I had left over out of the budget got built in the monster truck. And that 3 years to build a hauler and a trailer and a monster truck to go out before it made its first nickel was tough. And to think back on that now, I didn't think that the monster truck industry at that time had 5 years of life left in it. I thought, this just isn't going to amount to anything. I think it's on the downhill slide. We're on the backside of the Fred Schaefers and the Bigfoots and the all those famous early names from 35 years ago. And I thought, this has hit its pinnacle. It's going to fall by the wayside. Man, I was really wrong. I'm glad I was wrong,
right,
and be the first to admit it.
Yeah.
And where it's at today is spectacular.
I remember outside perception versus reality, right?
Yeah.
I remember looking you up and seeing you in La Crosse at the Monster Jam. Nobody at the pit party for whatever reason, so I was sitting here talking to you and Rod Schmidt, and like, I wish there were some people here, but hey, this is cool. And then looking you up and saying, hey, can I come out and do an interview with you? And I was expecting, I'm not going to lie, like, you have this whole, what Feld has now in Florida.
Sure.
This whole cool race shop.
Yep.
And you were at a garage.
Yeah,
and
I was in a
you
garage.
you literally backed the truck into a garage.
Yeah.
A little mini garage. I'm like,
two-car garage.
And he was just on Speed Channel the other week doing a slap wheelie, right? And ripping the tailgate off and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It was like night and day, open, eyes wide. And still, to my knowledge, unless you've come into 3 monster trucks worth of money recently, it's still that way, but you make it work. So
yeah,
the perception versus the reality of that is pretty crazy to me. I think people still expect if you're on TV that you have money. And
yes, they do.
But you've been on both sides of that, right? Have you been able to kind of open up other people's eyes to that? Like, you had, to jump around a little bit, you had gone on, they had invited you to be going from an announcer to Speed Channel and being a host on Monster Jam. Do you feel like you were able to come into that and bring the perspective of the guy in the garage in Muskego to Monster Jam, or was it more so just, hey, you drove a monster truck, tell us about it?
No, I think I was able to bring a perspective to the grassroots level where I came from, and I think that's why they asked me to come on, because I only talked about what I knew, and I spoke the truth, didn't candy coat it, and at the time when I started as a commentator and a host for Monster Jam on Speed, things had not escalated to where they are today. I mean, in the last 7 years, the progression of Monster Jam and monster trucks has exponentially grown leaps and bounds, as all of us know and our fans know. But at the time, they had done a couple of feature stories on me and showed where I came from. That I built my own hauler, I built my own trailer, and my monster truck was built in a 2-car garage next to my house that I literally had to cut the overhead door out of and put a 10-foot tall door on so that I could get the monster truck in and out of the garage. The proverbial building an airplane in your basement and then figuring out how to get it out.
And testing that airplane loudly sometimes and making neighbors mad.
Yeah, I got to know my neighbors very well. I lived in a residential subdivision, and at first they were not happy with me, and it ended up being a wonderful wonderful place to live, and aside from the weather, I do miss that, and I miss my family and friends. But I thought I was able to bring a perspective of the grassroots level at the time. You know, Monster Jam didn't own a lot of their own trucks, and you know, there was independents like Dennis Anderson, independents like Tom Mentz, independents like Jeff and Jocelyn Perrin, independents like Jim Kohler or Mark Schroeder, and I feel even funny including my name into that group of elites as far as I'm concerned. Those are all people that I looked up to, still do. Yeah. And to be able to run side by side with them out of my 2-car garage was gratifying.
Yeah. There's less and less of that now.
There's a lot less of that. And
those people that you named, there's out of all that list, I mean, you're the only one left.
Of an independent. Well, Jim Kohler.
So, okay, well,
yeah.
Kohler,
yeah.
and even Kohler, I mean, a lot of people don't realize that, and again, unless things have changed in the past couple of years, he's got a lot of work to do when he gets home.
Yes, he does.
Because he has a full-time job.
Yes, he does. He has a full-time job and a family and children and kids in college and managing his team of 4 trucks. You know, we're very dear friends. I've known Jim for a long time. He spends a lot of time at my place in Arizona. We have a lot of good brother talks. And I worry about him. I've been talking about him for 5 years, talking to him for 5 years, 8 years. Buddy, please, for your health, slow down. You have a lot of people in this world that love you. Yeah. Not to mention your wife and your kids, and you know, they cheer him on. They don't want him to stop, you know, because at one time he had considered it about 5 to 7 years ago and thinking about really pulling back. And they're like, no, Dad, we don't want you to, and we want you to keep going. And they support him. You know, my wife supports me, and to do what we love to do. And you know, for how do I want to say this? For me, it's always been a passion of racing. I enjoy it. And the entertainment factor is the ultimate high. It's fun. Our fans are great. Whether we're at a 50,000 seat stadium or a 500 seat county fair, it's all the same. And the people that come to see us are a special kind of people that really enjoy monster trucks.
Yeah. To touch on Kohler for a second too, I remember doing a show with you in Houghton, Michigan.
Yeah.
And interviewing him, and he said it takes a lot of time sometimes for Mr. Excitement to get excited.
Yes. And
that hit me because I was like, man, you know, I know he knows me a little bit, but he's shooting straight from the hip. And that was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's amazing to be able to do what Jim or you do now, given the climate. I mean, I went out on the track and just looked at all the ramps, and I hadn't been to a stadium show in a couple of years. I'd gone to Indy a couple of years ago, and that was it. I'm like, you're hitting brick walls now. Not to.
Thank you for recognizing that.
Because I'm not the one. You know, my truck ran like crap today. You know, I didn't have one. But when you have somebody like you that's got to look at those brick walls and then hit them, or Aaron or somebody like that, and then fix the stuff that happens because of that, that's pretty crazy to me.
It is.
The ramps have gotten steeper. Everything's gotten crazier, and like you said, sometimes compensation comes along with that, sometimes it doesn't. So I'd say your job's gotten harder, not easier, over the past 5 years.
Absolutely has gotten harder. Yeah. The level that this is raised to that I touched before, when I do a small show when I come off the road after having been at Monster Jam for 3 months, I'm tuned up pretty good. I'm feeling pretty big. I'm feeling strong. I'm feeling confident. And then I go to a small show, and I think to myself, 15 years ago, this small show would have been, whew.
Yeah.
Man, did you see the size of that? That was a full-size van. It wasn't even a minivan. It was a full-size van. Today,
there aren't vans.
No, there aren't vans, except when you go do a smaller county fair, and go back to kind of somewhat, again, the grassroots of it, the county fair, the cotton candy, and the caramel corn atmosphere. It's still hard to believe, as 10 foot tall and bulletproof as I may think I am after coming off the road with Monster Jam, I still walk up to a van and go, how do I want to hit this? Because you forget.
Yeah.
But then you think, man, Mark, do what you know.
Yeah.
You've been doing this a long time. Just like I said in the beginning of the interview, if that nervousness, not so much fear, there's a little fear, fear of breaking something on the truck and having to stay up all night and work on it, fear of breaking something and having to pay for it, fear of maybe, taking a hit that might sting you for a week, all that stuff. If that fear and that nervousness goes away, I have to quit, and it's not gone away yet. I'm thinking I might be the oldest monster truck driver out there by the time I retire.
I was gonna say I'm not gonna ask you your age because I don't remember off the top of my head.
I'll be 58 in May.
Okay, so there was like Deal Wilson that was near that.
Yeah.
Holy crap. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is Deal still driving? I don't even know.
I haven't
have no
seen.
idea.
I'm pretty sure he retired a few years back, and then he still does.
He's promoting some shows, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So
a good man, a very good man.
Yeah. So when you think about that, do you feel 58 before the show? Because I'm gonna say I know after the show, a lot of the guys feel about 88.
Yep.
But before the show, I mean, do you feel like, okay, I've got 5 years? Do you have an idea of what you want to do? Do you have a plan as far as that goes, or is it just like you said, till the passion's done?
It's going to be till the passion's done. I'm going to keep doing it as long as these people are going to let me keep doing it. And my wife Sue, she would like to see me go until I'm. Originally, she said 60. I said, yeah, baby, that's awesome. And she told me that when I turned 55, because I thought at 55 I was going to pull the pin. I thought, well, what am I going to do with myself? I need to do this. I feel great.
Okay.
To answer that question, I feel great. 55. 3 years later, at 58, knocking on the door of it, I feel good. Aside from my medical issues and my surgery, and I'm just going to put it right out there. I mean, I'm not going to give great details or anything, but I had a bowel perforation. I had to have emergency surgery. I was cut from my sternum down to my pubic bone, and I have a 18-inch incision that they literally pulled my guts out and cut me in half and put me back together, and they saved my life. And, big shout out to Dr. Saiz, which I'm sure he'll never hear this, but because he's too busy saving people's lives. But other than that, Robby, I still feel good. There are days, of course. I don't know what 88 feels like. I just know what I feel like. Some days I'm sore, not from monster trucks. Some days I'm sore, I think, from my abusive lifestyle of jumping off of monster truck tires, of being a mechanic for 15 years and standing on a concrete floor in 30 below weather in the middle of Wisconsin. Working outside. I think that's all part of just growing older. I think I'm fortunate to feel as good as I do. I'm only 58, which is also just 5 years short of Social Security, which totally freaks me out more than anything I've ever thought about, because I have always had in my mind that people that collect Social Security are really old.
Yeah. So hey, it's a mindset, right?
It is a mindset, and my issues that I had back in the fall was life-changing for me, life-changing in a mindset of having a more positive attitude and wanting to be a little bit healthier, and really just being more positive about everything and not stressing about the stuff that you can't control or doesn't really matter. And just go on and push on through life. My father-in-law and my father were great inspirations for me on how they lived and how they worked so hard, and I really believe I've been blessed to have my dad's work ethics, and so for me to quit doing Monster Jam or Monster Trucks, it's going to take a lot.
Yeah. Well,
it's going to be a while.
To relate and just touch on that real quickly, I would venture to say, a somewhat natural health issue, something that occurred not as a direct result of monster trucks. It makes me think of what happened with Dennis Anderson last year.
Absolutely.
Where,
which was a direct result of
that
monster
surgery
trucks.
And that is different than what you came across.
Right.
But everybody saw that, everybody heard about that, so we don't have to go into detail or anything. But seeing that, did it make you kind of internalize some of that stuff and go, okay, that's not going to be me. If I start getting my bell rung in the truck even a little bit, then I'm going to, step away.
I had that mindset 20 years ago.
See, there you go.
Yeah. I had that mindset 20 years ago, and my fears, talking about Jim Kohler, with how hard he works and how many hours a day he works. And he's fortunate enough to be one of those guys that needs 4 hours of sleep every 2 days. You know, he can do that. I'm not one. I need my beauty sleep, man.
Mm-hmm.
And clearly, if you could see me, you can understand why. My thoughts, you know, with Dennis Anderson, what happened to him last year. Dennis and I have had a lot of talks about health long prior to this issue with him. Tom Mentz, you know, I've worked with Tom well over 20 years ago when I used to do some small show promoting, and hired Tom, hired Pablo, some of the big name trucks to come and do these shows. And I'd see Tom get his bell rung, and, you know, I'd have to take care of him. And then when his bell was no longer ringing, sit down and have a talk with him going, dude, what are you doing? He said, it can always be fixed. It'll always be better. And he has a showmanship attitude. To me, I've never met anybody that has the attitude that he has. Inspirational, however, yet still scary.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing more important in life than your health,
yeah,
and your family and the people around you. And the risk versus reward for me, I'm not willing to take the risk that's going to reward me some sort of accolade that may then sideline me for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And I don't think I need to do that, and I don't think anybody else does.
Best trophy you can have in life is a good family and good atmosphere. Versus, you know, I won the points championship this year. No offense to anybody that wants to do that, but you know, there's a reason the divorce rate's pretty high on anything, whether it's monster trucks or wrestling or anything like that. If you have to be on the road that much and it's so demanding on your body and your mind, then you know, you're already asking a lot. To take it that next step further, you got to give respect to those people, but also say, you know, you need to keep that in check, or you're going to be not feeling well when you're 58.
Absolutely.
You know?
And you know, so it's important for me, and I still go back to, I want to give our fans, you know, here in Oakland or in Nampa, Idaho, or in Havasu 95 Speedway, I want to give those fans everything that they expect, but I won't, and I don't think you should have to risk your health to do that. And you know, today is the Daytona 500. In any motorsports, there is a risk, absolutely, and we take that, and we know that. And there's also it's a controlled chaos. It's a controlled risk, and I think we're at that point. I think we're good with that. I think the monster truck industry, in general, I think is good with that. I probably am a little bit more cautious. Not probably. I am absolutely more cautious than many of my peers, but that's their choice. Yeah. And but that doesn't keep me from worrying about them, because not only are they my peers, but they're my friends. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important for our fan base to know too that we too are only human. Yeah. We're not rich because we're on television. Right. We're in general not rich, period. We do what we do because of passion, and we love it, and it's a great job.
Well, you said there's nothing that, I think your famous quote that Dustin actually brought up to me was, there's nothing that humbles you like doing a show on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then coming back and scrubbing toilets on Monday. And so
you have a good memory, my friend.
You started out doing, you know, I shouldn't say started out. You're supplementing monster trucks with cleaning, or supplementing cleaning with monster trucks, whichever one you want to look at it.
I was supplementing monster trucks with cleaning.
Yeah.
And that was my business in Wisconsin. I had a private sector home cleaning business, and you are absolutely right. And I remember telling you that probably on multiple occasions. There's nothing that humbles you more than coming home from being put on a podium and being the most, I don't know, respected, most I don't even know. I don't have words for it. People put you on a podium, and you're a damn hero, and they want your autograph, and take a picture with you, and everything else, and they want a piece of you. They want to hug you, and they want to shake your hand, and that's wonderful. If they only knew that Monday morning, after driving all night Sunday home to be on time at my job, being self-employed, I still had to punch a time clock for my clients, and go to their house and stare down the barrel of a toilet and scrub a toilet or a shower.
Yeah,
you
live on a schedule, right? You know, you live on a schedule.
Absolutely.
For lack of better words, because I remember there were times when I mean, and then this is another thing for people that may not know. I remember going to Columbus, Nebraska with you, and
Yes.
you were already, I don't know what it was, but by the time we got there, long story short, you were already X number of dollars in the hole.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember thinking about that and going, man, if only people understood.
Yeah.
If your hauler breaks down on the way,
Mhm.
if you blow, I don't know, 2-3 tires on
Yeah,
the way.
and then, well, I think that's what happened when we went to Columbus. We lost a couple of tires or something. I don't know, whatever it was, but already upside down and in the hole.
Yeah, so, by the time you get to the show, you're already facing, I don't know if it was a profit or a loss. That's not really the point.
Mm-hmm.
But then on top of that, you got to go back on Monday and go, okay, I have to have time to work on this hauler and this truck, and I've already got an appointment, let's just say, on Monday to clean somebody's house.
Mm-hmm. Real life.
Yeah.
Real life.
Versus, I don't know, maybe flying in, backflipping a monster truck and breaking it all over the place and going home for a couple days and chilling out.
Flying home. Yeah.
Did it ever appeal to you? Like, did you ever, without getting into any details that get you in trouble or anything, did you ever say, I'd like to do what Duhan did and stop being an independent and just drive a little bit for somebody else's stuff and be able to have my foot in the door and still drive a truck, but not have all this responsibilities of a hauler and a schedule and all this stuff?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it did. It did cross my mind.
Yeah.
There was talk about it many years ago when I was a younger man. There was small talk of it. And then I felt like I didn't have 100% say in everything I did.
Right.
I was no longer an independent. I've been self-employed, whether it had been in the cleaning business or the monster truck business or whatever. I've been self-employed for 2.5, 3 decades.
Mm-hmm.
To give that up, I was scared about that. The appeal to go and drive for someone else wasn't as great as the appeal to continue to have my independence.
Yeah.
And that's really truth. I mean, there's nothing that I can say that's going to get me in any trouble.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that the powers that be at Monster Jam at the time were really seriously considering letting me drive. I think if I would have pushed the issue, maybe we could have, and I could have had a tryout, to see. Mm-hmm. But I would have had to give up my independence, and again have to give up probably some financial aspects of it, because a hired driver doesn't make as much on some weekends as a independent driver does. So my booking fees I wouldn't be booking my truck. I wouldn't be working my truck. Yeah, you don't have the cost of going up and down the road. You don't have the damage and everything else on your own truck. But by the same token, you're not getting maybe as much of a paycheck. Mm-hmm. So I think it was probably more me as a thinking, yeah, maybe I could do this, and it did interest me. But I didn't pursue it any further.